Awesome, for life. All right, welcome everybody. Today's guest, I'm just making sure that we're live. Okay, perfect. Today's guest is Chantelle Hobgood. She is actually one of my good friends, and she has been homeschooling her kids for 8 years. And so I wanted to talk today with her about how to facilitate learning at home, since we've all kind of found ourselves to be homeschool teachers now, unexpectedly. And yeah, so Chantelle, do you want to just introduce yourself and tell us about you?
Okay, sure. So I'm Chantelle Hobgood, and I travel full time in my RV with my husband and 8-year-old son. I do have older children as well, and I homeschooled them when they were younger. Of course, I'm a big homeschool advocate because I think it's awesome. But yeah, so it's wonderful. So I'm just happy to be able to share some tips today on how to get through this time from that.
What made you choose? Okay, so why are you a homeschool advocate?
Because, well, okay, we don't have enough time to talk about that, but basics is that it promotes lifelong learning and helps children really, instead of you're just in a classroom and you have to learn this and you're fed this and this is what we're doing, da 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 da. There's more freedom with that. And of course, if you can't already tell, I'm obviously a rebel and I don't live life like most people. And so I like that aspect of it. It also it's given all of my children, they're all very different. To be able to set things at their own pace, that doesn't mean that, oh, you know, we're not on the same level as anybody else. We definitely aren't on the same level as anybody else, but having seen my older kids go through 5 years of homeschooling and and both of them with learning disabilities, to see where they are now as adults, their ability in the regular world, because they were taught for so long to think for themselves and having to make choices and be responsible for their own education in a way. As adults, it's just phenomenal to see them, how different they are from everyone else. Different being advanced, different being not, and speaking to, oh gosh, are they rocket scientists? No, but they're high functioning adults that they're not like norm. They're now, let's see, 22 and 20, and they just have their shit together, if I could say that on your show. You know, thinking about long term and not thinking about what the other, not that they're not young kids, they still have fun and they do, you know, still do young things. So it's just really allowed them to just excel on all levels. So in a basic way, that's why I love homeschooling, because, and maybe that's partially me empowering them to really learn and really harness, you know, what they want to do in life and where they want to go. And so, yeah, so that's just like one little smidge of why I think homeschooling's awesome. So, and at the same time, it's not easy. So, but we can get into that too. But anyway.
Okay. So what made you choose to homeschool them? Because they weren't homeschooled through their whole school lives, right?
So when they were really, let's see, I think Mateo was going into the 2nd grade and May was in kindergarten. They both had learning disabilities. And let's face it, kids at school, they're mean. They're really mean. And my kids felt really stupid. And I was really disappointed in the education system, in that it's like how hard it was for me to get additional resources to try and help them. You know, hindsight's always 2020. Looking back, I'm not sure they were learning disabled. They both have dyslexia. They just don't learn like everybody else. They are highly functioning adults. They are non-traditional, highly functioning adults, incredibly intelligent. They're just not like everyone else. They just don't do things like everyone else. And so, you know, one of the things that school does is like, get in this box. You got to be in this box. And if you don't be in this box, you're not going to be successful. And I'm here to say that being out of the box makes you more successful. So when I started with them, it was directly had to do with their learning challenges in school. And then they went back to school. I think Mateo was in the 6th grade, and the only reason they went back to school was because of my glorious ex-husband. But that's a whole other story. But they had this 5 years of this foundation with me of who was their sphere of influence, me. And what did I do during that time? I taught them to think for themselves and to be who they wanted to be. And school doesn't teach that. School is very much in this box, conform to the norm. So when we started homeschooling with them, it was because of that. Now, I had no intention of homeschooling Champlin, my 8-year-old. But then we decided to, I was like, oh, I'm too old for this. I can't homeschool. I don't think I can do it. It was really hard to homeschool the other kids. And now that I know what I know now, I would have done some things differently, but that's beside the point. Anyway, been doing it lots of years. And now with Champlin, us being on the road full time, homeschooling him was the only way that it was going to work for us. And so taking all the lessons that I learned from the other kids and looking at who he was as an individual and just kind of modifying that. I mean, I hope he never goes to public school.
Right.
So, but college, I know that's different. In the other room.
Okay, so he's in grade 3 or 4?
I think technically he's supposed to be in grade 3. Okay, glorious thing about homeschooling is, yeah, he may be in the 3rd grade, but we close the, mommy needs to do this, okay? You need to do this. You're supposed to be doing your reading. This is homeschooling, guys. I know you who are working at home, this is how homeschooling works.
Yeah.
So he's technically, quote, in grade 3, and we are all over the place in terms of where we are on grade level.
Okay. All right. So a lot of us have found ourselves all of a sudden being homeschool teachers, and we were kind of unexpectedly doing this. And then we're also trying to balance working. And so we're thinking in our minds, at least for me, I'm thinking, how am I going to fill 6 hours of the day of learning?
Stop.
And
I'm going to stop you right there. Okay. Because one thing is, my sister's also, she's a teacher. And so she is a Montessori teacher. And so she now is homeschooling her own children because no one's in school here, but plus she still has to be a teacher to these other kids.
Okay.
And glorious thing about homeschooling, and this is first and foremost, get this in your mind. What is done in 6 hours or 8 hours or whatever it looks like for your child can be done in this much time. Literally. So you think, oh my gosh, my kid goes to school for 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, whatever it is. I need to do that. It's not realistic. We spend maybe 2 hours a day. And you go, oh my God, that's terrible. Oh, what's going to happen to your child? My child reads at a 7th grade level.
Wow.
And some things, quote, were on grade level. Some things were not. Anyway, so I want you, the first thing you need to do is go, I don't need to do this for 6 hours. Because you absolutely, it's not realistic. First of all, you have to remember that when kids are in school, most of the time teachers are, what are they spending their time on? Getting kids on task. Mm-hmm. It's spent keeping kids on task and getting kids on task. And even I still do it with the 2 hours. So we have, basic subjects that we cover, and everything for the most part is in 5-minute increments, because that's essentially, kids have very short attention spans, and the younger the child, the worse it is.
Right.
And so the first thing is breathe, 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 breathe. And think of overlapping, because reading is reading. It doesn't matter. So if you think, oh my gosh, I have reading. My kid needs to read, or I have literacy. You have to, and they even do this in school. So you have to remember that when you read, it doesn't matter if you're reading free, whatever your child wants to read, or if you want them to read something science related, they're still reading. So they're getting that reading that's it's a science subject.
Mm.
There's so much overlap. So if you have it in your mind, we have 3 big days of homeschooling, which is where we have, quote, our 2 hours. Our other 2 days are our small days. And maybe it's an hour and a half. Maybe it's only an hour. And my kid is excelling. So
Right.
cut yourself some slack. But also, so the other side of that is, yeah, he's advocating I cut him even more slack. So, and also there's so many resources out there that we don't watch mainstream TV and we don't watch regular TV, but sometimes, you know what? Hey, it's during the day, you've done your school, whatever. Watch a Nat Geo program. There's great stuff on Netflix. There's great stuff on Disney Plus, Hulu, whatever, wherever you go. If you want your child to just not mainstream TV, that you can tap into, that is learning. It doesn't have to, first thing you have to remember is your house does not need to look like it does at school. It just doesn't, because mine doesn't.
Right.
At all. And he's excelling.
So what would a typical day of like your big homeschooling day look like?
So a typical day is the one thing that I am hardcore about. This is just personal philosophy. If you can read and write and do math, you can do everything else. Think about your own schooling. When you think about what you learned in science class and what you learned in history, can you remember any of that?
No, not personally.
Most people can't, outside of my husband, who's like the history buff, but we all have a different thing. So release yourself from thinking, I've got to do, because your teachers are going to send you a list of this much time for this much time for that, da 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 da. Yeah, whatever. That's all I'm going to say is a big fat whatever on that, because it's not realistic, especially if you have to work 8 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
So a big homeschooling day for us, here's what we cover. We have reading, and he absolutely must read 30 minutes a day. Now he argues with me because he wants to read more than that. So a lot of our homeschooling time will be longer because, Mom, can I just read a little bit more of this? And we're pretty flexible in terms of, I don't care what he reads, it just has to be at a +1 level. So what is a +1 level? A +1 level is, where is your child? Where can they read? +1.
Oh, okay.
So that there's that little bit of a challenge. You don't want to try and get them to read something they're not ready to read. So for us,
try reading like Spanish or something.
Right. So for us, we absolutely have 30 minutes of reading a day. But there's freedom in what he reads with that. I don't care if you want him to read online books, think outside of the box. Obviously, no one can go to the library, but if you have books at home, read those books. Just make sure it's +1. And we always say, your regular non-homeschooling reading, read whatever you want. I don't care if it's 2nd grade. But when we're doing technical reading, it's 30 minutes. We do an online math curriculum because Champlin likes, it's called Zern, because Champlin likes to argue with me too much about math. So I let someone else do that.
Okay.
You can't argue with the computer. And so the program can be 20 to 40 minutes, kind of depending on what it is. So my big chunks, as you can see, are reading and math. Okay, so right. Language being it's probably what I'm going to say might not be exactly what they say in Canada, but language lessons being, your grammar, writing, etc. He has, it's called Language Lessons, and it's a workbook, and he does the front and the back page. That literally takes him 5 minutes. What does it take of my time? It takes me 5 minutes to go back over. Here's where your time comes in, is that you're going to brush up on all the things that you've forgotten about. But literally that will take him 5 minutes to do, and 5 minutes for me to go back and say, wait a second, you didn't put your quotation marks around this, or did you pick out the adjective, or did you pick out the adverb? 5 minutes, okay? Then he has a writing curriculum that he does. I think it's really important, depending on where your child is. Reading is reading. So whether or not you're reading to them or they're reading to you. So in his writing program that he does, it has segment passages that I read to him. And then that part works on that comprehension of what he's reading, so you know that he's learning how to summarize and learning how to comprehend what he's read. But then that component of writing comes in, and that is maybe 15 minutes. Whatever you can do to encourage your child to work independently is going to be your biggest thing. I have MS, and so a lot of what I have to do is like, dude, you have to do this independently because mom's got to lie down or whatever. So encourage that independence. They do it in school, just so you know. Your teacher isn't up there holding your child's hand and getting them, they have to sit in class and fill out their worksheets or whatever. If you have more than one child at home, enlist the help of older children with the younger children. It promotes their own learning. It reinforces what they already know, and it helps the younger child. So it's also very Montessori. I'm kind of all over the place with what I think, we should do. And again, everybody's family looks differently. Number one thing to remember is, and I realize a lot of people are sheltering in place, but the world is your classroom. When your child asks you a question and you don't know the answer, go get the answer. If they know how to find the answer, say, I don't know. Why don't you go look that up on the internet? Do it with them. Do it, whatever. It's the biggest thing. That's one of the things that I love about homeschooling is that Champion will say, well, mommy, because he's really into dinosaurs. He's like he's literally an archaeologist on steroids. It's actually ridiculous. And so let them follow their passions. Excuse me, paleontologists have been corrected. Let them follow their passions. Learning is learning. Okay. And this is what's going to happen, just so you know. You can hear my child in the background. They're going to interrupt you. And they're going, I know, I appreciate that. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Privileges, and enlist privileges. We very much are into privileges and one of the reasons I have a boy, and I know a lot of you out there have a boy, this doesn't matter for you, Connie, but boys, oh my God, getting them to sit down for 5 minutes. Literally, there are some days that he will have his work and we've done 5 minutes and I'll go, okay, you've got 10 minutes to run. And I'm not kidding you. You've seen him do it.
Yeah.
Run. He'll run for 10 minutes. He'll come back and sit down and do the next 10 minutes of work. So I'm sorry, I got a little distracted there. So then we have, quote, building thinking skills that he does on his hard days. And some of that is developing of critical thinking. And it's he loves worksheets. By the way, I'm not a worksheet advocate, just happens to work for Champlain. So he does that. And then what else do we do, Champlain? And then he has another, quote, spelling program. Work on those spelling words if that's important to you. I didn't do spelling until this year.
Oh.
We did not do any spelling because if you can read, you're going to be able to learn to spell. You're going to learn to write. School teaches us so much. I need one moment, please. Champlin's dying to go live with us. So
okay.
He has to say hi.
Hi, Champlin.
So now give us our time because I'm trying to help people. Now I lost my train of thought.
You're talking about your hard days and what you do on those days. Or your big days, I think you call them.
So go with those distractions. Literally let your kid run around. It's going to help you so much. I just go like, dude, you got to do this. You just got to just go ahead and run and do what you have to do. And then he can come back and he can focus. So then like science, social studies, history, we receive a Ranger Rick subscription. Obviously, if you're not doing this, just think outside the box. There's so many resources online. We also have little passports, which gives you geography as well as history. And a lot of curriculums nowadays have a lot of overlap, so that when you are doing, quote, science, there you can also incorporate when your child writes, if they have to write something in a different subject, keep focusing on what you've learned from the other subjects to just reinforce that. So for instance, if he is doing we have a science curriculum and, quote, a history curriculum that we do sporadically, because I don't think that those two subjects, you need to beat that into them. This is just me, but it's what's helped me, because I don't remember any of that from when I was a kid. So
Right.
me, learning is learning, and exposure is what is important. So exposing them to new things is what's most important, I believe. Not remembering what was, when was the Civil War and who was this person and who was that person. You're not going to remember that when you're an adult at all.
Yeah.
And so, but if, for instance, let's pretend that the teacher has sent something home and they have to write a history report. That history report is an opportunity for you to reinforce all your language arts, your reading, etc.
Right.
So just, you have to look at it as, you don't have to look at everything as this subject is this and this subject is this. If you segment it that way, you're going to spend way too much time. Think about, for instance, he has his writing program that I was telling you about, that I read those small passages and we do the out loud comprehension and summaries. Mm-hmm. And so on that sheet, he has to write his name and the date. And we are learning how to spell all of the months simply by writing the word. So now we're doing March. And he also does the date in whatever form. I don't know what it is in Canada. In the United States, it's 03/26/20 here. So however that works, you can just use every single thing that you do as a way to reinforce things in their learning. And one of the things that helped me the most is that I think about, what do I use on a day-to-day basis? And if you keep that at the forefront of your mind, it's going to relieve a lot of pressure. The most important thing I think everyone needs to do is to relieve pressure. So when I first started my homeschooling journey, one of the books that I read, because I've read everything under the sun, it feels like, and I'm sure I've read everything under the sun. You have that thing of, oh my God, 8 hours a day, my kid is missing out.
Right.
You just do. And it takes years. So in this 2 months, or even if it's 6 months, keep that in the forefront of your mind. It's okay. You don't need to worry about this. When the first books that I read was an unschooling book, K through 8, kindergarten through 8th grade, I know you say it differently there, can be done if someone did 8 hours a day. Now sit down, everyone, in a year and a half. Obviously, a kindergartner doesn't have the capacity to do what an 8th grader does. Right. But if you waited and your child wasn't educated until they were older, where they had their brain was developed enough to be able to do all of that, K through 8 can be done in a year and a half full time.
That's crazy.
High school can be done in a year and a half. So look at that, 3 years of going to work full time, 40 hours a week, would get your kid educated of 12 years of schooling. So breathe. Even if the child didn't do anything, they're going to be okay. Now, obviously, everyone who's listening, and it's important to them for them to educate their child. It's important for me to educate my child. I'm way into it. But just in the short term, if you're having to work 8 hours a day from home and your kid only gets an hour, so be it. They're going to be okay. Focus. Obviously, I live in an RV. If it's important to you that your child is sitting at a desk, do that. I'm going to tell you, it's going to be harder. It's harder to institute that in your home. But if that's important to you, whatever it looks like, just know that you have the freedom. take lots of breaks,
Okay.
and have them do it themselves because they
Awesome.
really can.
Yeah, and I think because it all came to us at once, right? We were all of a sudden told to work from home,
Yep.
and we now have our kids at home all day,
Yeah.
and we can only stay in our house except to go out for fresh air or groceries, right? And
Yeah.
so and then all the anxiety around COVID-19. So we're all
Yeah.
kind of dealing with like everything, and it's like, okay, just breathe.
Yes.
Which
Breathe, just breathe, just breathe. Share resources. We are very freedom-based people, but I'm very strict about, we don't watch cartoons. My kids never watch Cartoon Network. Not that he's never watched cartoons, but just kind of develop a different way of doing things based on your own value system. I mean, my way is not the only way by any means.
right.
And there's a lot of stress, like you just said, Connie, about we have all these limitations and there's this sickness that's out there that people
Yeah.
are concerned about. And get your kids outside. Oh my gosh, get them outside. The world, it's just, yes, they need that time outside, and sitting inside all of that time. Your kids may be arguing with you in a couple of months saying, please homeschool me, because they don't want to go back and sit in that classroom. So
Right.
this could open a big can of worms for people. not that everyone can do it, but
Yeah.
so.
Well, because prior to all of this, Champlin's, a lot of his classrooms were like the dinosaur museum and stuff, right? So,
And now we can't do any of those things because obviously they're all closed. But the internet is a huge resource, and if you feel you need to monitor, do what works right for you. One of the things that, because we love the outdoors, we're big mountain people, and Google Earth has, if you don't know Google Earth, you need to go learn about Google Earth. If you've heard of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, it's an old video game, and it literally will teach your child geography, and that is through Google Earth. What's the other thing that's on there, Champlain? What's that other?
Natural Wonders.
Natural Wonders is on it.
Quiz.
Yeah, the Natural Wonders quiz. There's just like so many things, and I think right now Audible is. I got an email the other day. Audible, your kids can go on and listen to books for free. It's like way cool. Take advantage of that. Reading is reading, whether you are reading to them, they're being read to, or they're doing the reading themselves. Learning is learning. Just think outside of that box.
Oh, that's interesting, because I was like, I saw the Audible thing and I haven't signed her up because I was like, but then somebody's reading to her. But I think it's because I look at my own Audible patterns, and it's like I turn on Audible so that I can type on the computer and then I don't listen to the book at all. So
There's just a ton of stuff out there. And honestly, if you guys want ideas, and Connie and I have this very short period of time to talk about this, but I am more than happy to talk to anybody. If you want ideas of online resources, the options are endless. That Zern program I was talking about is actually free. I buy the worksheet. It comes in, it's the quote curriculum, and it comes into workbooks. I buy it because it's just easier for us, but you actually can just print it out. And the online access is free. There's also a ton of really inexpensive things that if you just, it's not in your cards that you want to teach your kid, there are tons of online programs that are low cost that you can sign your kids up for. If that's just easier for you, just do it. Just do it.
okay, that's okay, so that's another thing. Like for me, reading and writing is easy to help her with, but it's like science and math and history that I have absolutely no like recollection really of. Like I remember, I know how to do basic math, but I also know how to use a calculator. So
Right.
I'm not right.
Yes.
And so I looked at her math book this morning because they sent her math textbook home, and I was just like, I don't remember any of this stuff. And so I'm kind of freaking out over the subjects that I'm not strong in.
Right. Yeah. Don't freak out. First of all, don't freak out. That's first and foremost. You're going to freak out. Don't freak out.
Okay.
Out. And Yeah, and I don't know what they're doing in Canada. It's really being loose here in the US in terms of, teachers are sending this home, but they also know that people are working and they can't expect them to do what's done in school. It's impossible. So I'm sorry I cut you off.
Oh no, that's basically like for me, so it's really all of those online resources I'm counting on
Yeah, you
for her
need
to
to
learn.
do that. One of the best things I love about science is literally go online and kind of see, you can look at your kid's grade level, find experiments. The greatest thing about science is it's very hands-on. Um, and I'm not an advocate for just rote memorization, but it's very hands-on, and you can find things. Just go look at science experiments, grade whatever. Do that.
Mm,
Even if you just did that the whole time, because is your child really? They're not going to have a test when they go back next year to know, what is the anatomy of an insect or whatever.
right, right.
Just expose them. Let this be that time that you go, okay, well, let's say science is really important to you. Really need to learn this science. There's so many great things that you do that don't need to come from a textbook. That's the thing, that the shift in homeschooling is to realize that it doesn't have to be from a textbook for it to be good quality learning.
Mm, okay, cool. So Bethany is asking if there could be a file attached with preferred online resources. Could we work on that?
Yeah, we absolutely can.
Okay.
Definitely. And there are another thing that you can do, and it takes some time depending on because we are very, very much, we like that freedom to it, and everybody feels differently. There are some people who are really rigid and they feel like they need to do this, this, and this, and this, and this. We're not that household, but if that's your household, why don't you, there's a ton of, just join homeschool groups on Facebook. There's a plethora of information that people can help you, but I'm more than happy to give you tons of resources. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh, okay. And then Carrie's just talking, saying that her son could help Abby. Abby actually loves math.
Oh, good.
Which is so like like beyond me, because I hate math.
Yeah.
So when she starts, and they're doing it so differently now, right? Like when we were going to school, it was like you sit there and you memorize multiplication.
Right.
And they do like now these like block things and
yes.
like creative math ways. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really care to learn that because I use a calculator. So
well, and I think some of them, remember, I think if we get into, because that happened to me too, I've memorized my multiplication tables.
right.
And quite frankly, I don't think I would know my multiplication tables as well as I do if I hadn't have homeschooled my kids all these years, because you just don't use it, and you've got your phone or you've got your calculator. And
Yeah.
It's okay to teach your kids some of the things that you learned, because I find that the way that they teach kids in school is harder. And I'm going, why don't we just do it the simple way? It's okay to give them more tools. If you have shortcuts that work for you, teach your kids those shortcuts. It's only going to help them.
Oh, okay. Okay, awesome. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I think that's it.
Well,
and it relieved a lot of pressure, right? It's not like we have to replace the school day.
If any of you guys send me an instant message, if you just need to go, okay, oh my God, I'm having a panic, I am so happy to just listen to you panic, because I've been there, done that. So
awesome.
Everybody, you can do it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.